Okay, so one of the things that we want to talk about before we get started learning the software is developing your story and its characters. For this class, I'm going to give you the basis of the story, and then you're going to develop that story and your characters for the class. Okay, so you have full control over your characters within the story. And the only reason I'm giving you the story is because in the past, when I've allowed students this early on to choose the story, they get stuck. And so I don't want you getting stuck. I want you guys focusing on learning the software, learning the techniques, learning character development. And then when we move into, because there's 5, potentially 7, and I'll explain that later, 5 classes in this series that build on top of one another. You're having to take these classes in succession because the material you learn in this class is necessary to move into the next semester. There's 2 classes next semester and then the final semester. And then if you want, there's an additional 2 classes that create a TCC, animation and film, that you can take after you've completed the requisite 5. I'm actually teaching, I've taught that before, and I teach it again to the students who really want to do this for a living, because it gives them another project for their portfolio and more experience. But for now, one of the things that we're going to do in this class is you are going to develop your characters. But we want to talk about up front how to develop your story and your characters in the beginning so that you are thinking about that as you work through the course, because it's not just about learning software. It's about learning how to design and use the software to effectively create your designs. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so in this lecture, I use animation characters, gaming characters, graphic novel characters, because they're all animation. Now, we're specifically going to focus on 3D animation, and we're going to use 3D Studio Max. The reason we use 3D Studio Max is, in my opinion, aside from Blender, which is very easy to learn, I just don't feel like Blender's as powerful as 3D Studio Max. We're going to use 3D Studio Max because it's one of the most universal 3D animation programs, but it's also easier to learn than the other full feature animation programs, in my opinion. And it may just be because I'm biased. I started learning how to use it in 1999 and have been working with it for over 20 years now. And I can say that it is very powerful. It has over 80,000 commands, but it's also very hard to learn. It has a very steep learning curve. And it's really important that you practice every single day. And I'm telling you this not as an instructor alone, but as somebody who's an instructor, because I learned how to use the software. I got a copy from somebody 20 something years ago, and I practiced every single day until I learned the software. And then I was able to use it in industry to be able to achieve modeling and animation as part of my job. So I've been out there, and I'm speaking from a place of experience. Every time I have sent a team of animators to Skills USA state, we have won gold. And that's because I don't make this, this isn't easy, but I do everything I can in these courses to make sure that you guys have the access you need to learn. You're just going to have to practice to get good at it. Okay? So at any point, if you get stuck or you need something else, please let me know. I've been teaching this, I've been using it for 20 something years, and I've been teaching it since 2006. Okay? So, I used it. I teach it. I know it very well. It's one of my favorite things in the whole universe to do. And if you're stuck somewhere, just let me know. I can probably help you fix it. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with getting stuck. This is very, very hard. So there are multiple balls you're going to have to juggle, so to speak, in the beginning, and it can get a little overwhelming. So the thing I'm going to recommend you do is just keep breaking it into small chunks and master those chunks before you move on to the next. And it will eventually build on itself. And I can tell you, having taught this class, gosh, 20 something times, that you will, by midterm, now be comfortable. Because one of the things you're doing with 3D animation is you're learning a new language. It's like, I don't know if any of you guys have ever looked at Greek or Chinese or Japanese as a language. It's not just different characters, or not just a different language. It's different symbols, different characters, different letters, different culture, different ways of syntax, different grammar. And it can get really overwhelming if you try to look at it too big picture. So what I want you guys to do is to break this down into small chunks and focus only on that chunk. Because if I give you 600 books at the end of the hall and I tell you to move them to the other end of the hall, you're going to be 600 books. How am I going to move 600 books? You're going to move 600 books, 2 or 3 books at a time, 5 books at a time. If you have a dolly, maybe 20 books at a time. That's what you're going to do with this, okay? So it is important that you work with this every day. If you want to be an animator, and the good news is animation jobs pay very well. There is a shortage of animators in Georgia. The animation and gaming industry followed the film industry here, and it will stay long after the film industry has moved on to the next state. And so there are people looking to hire animators in Georgia, and there's plenty of opportunity. You have to really love doing this. So if you decide you don't, it's okay to decide that this isn't what you want to do. It's very different than what a lot of people think it is. But I'm going to make sure that you guys are, when you're done with your 2 years, you could either move on to Georgia State to get your bachelor's degree. Your MFA is required for a lot of companies. A lot of animation firms require people to have an MFA. A BFA, Bachelor's of Fine Art degree, in order to even be considered to be hired. I will say that has changed somewhat in Georgia just because of the shortage. They are now looking at students with associate's degrees in animation. But here's the reason that you want to get an associate's degree in animation from Georgia Piedmont first. I teach you the tools. When you go to a bachelor's program, they won't. They expect you to learn the tools in addition to and ancillary to your classes. They don't teach you the software. You have to learn that on your own. So by learning that first, you will be stronger once you get into a bachelor's program because you'll already know the tools that you need to be able to be successful in developing your work further. It also takes some time to get good at this. A lot of the work I'm going to show you is going to be done by people who have years of practice behind them. And so don't compare yourselves to them. Certainly strive to do the absolute best job you can. And one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give you early on is whatever you do it a second and a third time, because each time you do it, you will learn from that, and your third or your second and third attempts will be better and improve from your first. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so who are your favorite characters? When you think about animation, who are your favorite characters? And then, most importantly, as a student learning animation, developing characters yourself, why are they your favorite characters? Right? That's the important thing. Why do some characters stick for some people and not others? What makes them favorites across the board? Why are they universal favorites? Right? Because here's an image of a whole bunch of characters, superheroes. I don't recognize some of them. Others I do. I grew up watching Superman movies, but in no way, shape, or form is he my favorite, or do I connect to him at all. Okay. Other characters I do. You're going to see a lot of, in fact, let me just go ahead and go to the next slide here. You're going to see a lot from Fortnite in here, and I've never even played the video game, but I absolutely love the design of the characters. And why? Because they're creative, they're outside the box, they're I mean, come on, he's got on a bunny suit with grenades. How cool and clever and original is that? So that's one of the things you want to think about, because everyone does have favorite video game characters or animation characters or graphic novel characters. You can ask people what's their favorite video game character, and they'll almost everyone who plays video games, of course, will have an answer for you. And they don't even have to be avid gamers. They could just be people that play occasionally. And the reason is, some characters are so great that they just transcend the video game barrier. Again, here I am, a woman in my 50s who is just absolutely enamored with these characters, video game characters for a video game I've never even played. It's probably not something I even have any interest in playing. I tend to play games that are more problem puzzle solving, but I just absolutely love the characters. Your parents probably know about Zelda or Link or Pikachu. Even your grandparents probably know about Mario. And yeah, I used to play video games in an arcade in high school, and Mario was one of those. And so, what is the trick? This is what you want to figure out, right? What's the trick to making these characters stick? Why do we know who they are? How do you then create characters that are going to resonate with people? How do you design something that has decades worth of staying power? Well, there's an answer to that. Okay, so we're going to start with, how do you begin the process of character development? And I'm going to tell you. We always begin with a story. As an animator, you are a storyteller. As a filmmaker, you are a storyteller. As an artist, a designer, a creative, you are a storyteller. There needs to be a story behind every single thing you design or create in order to make it stick. So why do humans like to tell stories? Why do we like to hear stories? All right. Whoops. Sorry, just knocked my computer over. Why do we even need a story? Right? And again, you can see here all these different characters from games, and obviously she's fabulous, right? Look at that. Why? What's her story? She clearly has a story, right? In DMPT 1000, you all learned about the principles and elements of design. In animation, you're going to need to apply those. And you can see here that has been done. But there's also a story here, right? It goes deeper than just design in terms of which principles and which elements. What's the story? Well, let's talk about that. In the process of creating an animated project, countless decisions must be made, and so we need a basis for making them. Ellen Besson, Animation Unleashed, your textbook for this class. In order to develop our characters, we first need a guide. The story is that guide. Like a map, it will help assist us in our decision-making process. Okay? So the reason you need a story is because the story is going to be what helps you pick your principles and elements of design, your personality for your character, everything, every choice you make in the creation and development of your animation is going to be based on that story. And it's that simple. Okay, I'm actually going to stop this video here and continue in the next.